I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Ba weep, grana weep, nitty bong, Kiki.
Weep, grana weep, nitty bong?
It's the universal greeting.
Well, universally greet to you too.
In 1986, a film came out. A film that boasted that it was beyond good, beyond evil, and beyond your wildest imagination. A film that for 40 years traumatized a generation of children because a bunch of higher-ups in suits thought they're just toys. The kids won't be bothered by it. I'm, of course, speaking about the death of Optimus Prime in Transformers the movie. A moment in time, a moment in pop culture that is so ingrained that this year, for the 40th anniversary of the film, Hasbro themselves had set out in what they're calling the Apology Tour. All of these fan conventions and events where they are kind of apologizing for the fact that they killed off Optimus Prime. Because for us kids, Optimus Prime wasn't just a toy. He was our hero. And how dare they kill off our hero?
Yeah, I mean, even the writer of the film told them multiple times that this was a really bad idea. And he tried to explain to people that, he tried to explain to the people at Hasbro that Optimus Prime was not a toy. He was like the father of the family. And he was like, what you're telling me is I have to kill off daddy. And that's going to not go over well.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, imagine, you're watching Batman. And 20 minutes into Batman dies. And now Damian Wayne is the new hero. I paid to see Batman, the movie, not Damian Wayne, the movie.
Yeah. This was a real kind of thing where I know that we talk about Aladdin as kind of the point where stunt casting really began. But this movie, had it been more popular, might have been that sort of linchpin that we think of as Aladdin, because that was one of the reasons why they wanted to kill off a lot of the characters, was because, Peter Cullen and Frank Welker, they're not big names. We can't sell a movie on their names, so we have to kill off their characters so that we can put, Judd Nelson and Robert Stack and Leonard Nimoy in there,
And Orson Welles in what would end up being his final film role. And boy, did he hate doing this movie. He, by his own admittance, he did it for the money, but he would do an interview right around the time of the film's release where I'm playing a toy in a cartoon. I don't remember what the character's name is. I don't remember what the movie's about, and I don't care. I play a toy in a cartoon. So, Orson Welles really was only in it for the money. Respect to him for that. But little kid me wants to go eat your peas in the other room.
Yeah, here's some frozen peas and a bottle of wine.
Go reminisce about the French countryside or however that commercial goes.
Yeah.
I know Maurice LaMarche can recite it by heart, but I'm not going to ask him.
Supposedly that's his vocal warm-up. He's just quoting that commercial. Great stuff. Shout out to Maurice LaMarche, who is not in this movie, but probably should have been. Anyway.
He would have been a better Orson Welles than Orson Welles.
Yeah, truth. Because honestly, listening back, I was like, man, this does not at all sound like Orson Welles. It's not just the fact that they put like a sort of filter over his vocals to make him sound slightly robotic, but there's no bass to his voice in this. You really think of Orson Welles as having that like real gravitas to his voice, and you could absolutely tell that he was phoning it in. That all of this was probably one take, and he just like walked in and was like, Whatever, Galvatron, I will eat your planet. Okay, give me a paycheck. I'm going home."
Like, the only bit of emotion we get is when Megatron agrees to Unicron's terms, and he goes, "Excellent." And that's the only bit of emotion we get from Orson Welles in this entire movie. Even when Unicron is dying at the end of the movie, it's like, uh, you cannot destroy me. Okay, that's the end. I'm going to go to lunch.
"No, I am destroyed. Okay, that's it. That's lunch."
So, I mean, I get why they wanted to turn Transformers into a movie. I mean, now it's a multi-million-dollar toy franchise with multiple cartoons. So of course you're going to make a movie now, but then it was 2 seasons, a comic book, and the toys. But it was also the 80s, where it was the rise of the quote unquote half-hour commercial that these cartoons were for the toys. So like every cartoon had a movie. There was the He-Man She-Ra Secret of the Sword movie. There was the My Little Pony movie. There was the Care Bears movie. Rainbow Bright had a movie. Every major 80s cartoon had a movie. The GoBots, the ripoff of Transformers, had a movie the same year.
Yeah, it was kind of funny that GoBots got to it at about the same time.
Mm-hmm. Just about a month before, but I'm going with that uh, Hanna-Barbera animation versus big budget Japanese animation for the Transformers movie.
Yeah. The thing is that the reason the movie is the way it is, and I think the reason it, kind of bombed so big at the box office, because boy, did this thing tank at the box office. Um, is that the movie is so different to the tone of the TV show. I mean, the TV show had a lot of action and a lot of fighting, but there was no death in the TV show. Like, you didn't even really have like, oh, there's nameless henchmen getting exploded in the background, Like, it wasn't even like that. It was just like, Decepticons show up, Autobots counter, and Decepticons retreat and leave, you know?
There's a moral lesson at the end of the episode.
Yeah, and somehow they work some moral into the episode. But it was never like, this movie begins with like a horrific scene of Unicron eating a planet and
One of
killing
my
everybody on it.
Nameless Planet of Robots. One of my favorite pre-YouTube videos. Yes, this is before YouTube was a thing. Was someone had re-edited that beginning scene to have the robot planet be the GoBots' homeworld, Gobatron, to kind of explain what happened to the GoBots. So that's always been my headcanon since I saw that. This was like 20 something years ago. It's probably on YouTube somewhere. And in my headcanon, that is that opening scene. The GoBots' homeworld being destroyed by Unicron.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that there was a point in the development of this movie where I think this movie would have been better and more emotionally impactful just as a plot line. because one of the earlier scripts, which has apparently now been lost to time, was, and I don't know if it was written by the same writer or if it was written by somebody else and was rejected, but there was apparently a script for this movie that was called like The Secret of Cybertron or something. And it had a lot of the same elements as the movie we got, including Unicron being the main villain. But what was going to happen was that over the course of the movie, Optimus Prime was going to discover that Cybertron itself was a transformer.
Primus!
And that in order to defeat Unicron, he was going to have to use the Matrix of Leadership to awaken the heart of Cybertron or whatever and get it to transform and fight Unicron. So at the end of the movie, we were basically going to have two planet-sized Transformers fighting each other, which would have been awesome.
It would have been awesome. That concept would get used in later Transformers media. The most recent film, Transformers 1, specifically already says that, Primus is the soul of Cybertron. It is Primus himself, or the soul of Primus itself, that gives Orion Pax the Autobot Matrix of Leadership to become Optimus Prime.
So, it's gotten recycled and stuff till then, but like, can you imagine your little kid brain in the 80s being shown that on a big screen?
It. I mean, I wanted the Unicron toy. I never got it because they never made one until the 2000s. There was a prototype, and it's out there. If you can find pictures of the Unicron, it's not good. It's just like a giant ball with fold out arms, folded out feet. Looks like literally if Orson Welles was a robot. I'm talking old man Orson Welles. And I got that. I have it. That Transformers Unicron from the 2000s because I wanted it ever since I was a kid. It's kind of been my holy grail, and that's been in my collection ever since.
My holy grail is the Gen 1 Megatron that they can't sell anymore.
Because it's a realistic gun.
Yeah. I have seen one in person. The comic store in my town, somebody had sold their old collection, and so they had one. And so I've seen it, and they even the guys who ran it transformed it in front of me and everything, but it was so expensive at the time because I was still like a kid, It was so expensive at the time that I couldn't afford it, and by the time I had any sort of job or income, it had already sold.
They have reissued the old toys. I believe I just saw a few on eBay. So if you can search eBay, you can find a couple of the reissues of the old G1 Megatron toy.
Yeah. But the thing is about the, going back to them creating the movie and stuff is that the writer really did have a lot of complaints about this. Guy named Ron Friedman. And it wasn't like he was new to the series. He wrote for the original TV series and he wrote for other Hasbro, he had written for other Hasbro cartoons as well. So, it wasn't like he was not familiar with this world of Hasbro and their cartoons, but when he got the job, he wrote a script that he thought was in line with the way the TV show was going and how kids were responding to the TV series. And then the higher ups at Hasbro sent down the note like, no, this is our way of getting rid of what we now think of as Gen 1 Transformers. But they were like, this is our way of getting rid of a lot of characters because we have a lot of new toy ideas. And the old toys are not selling at the rate they were, so this is time to refresh the line. So he got the note that basically you have to kill off Optimus Prime, you have to kill off Megatron, and you have to kill off as many of the other secondary characters as you possibly can during the course of this movie.
See, that I can get, but I mean, as I say, the half-hour toy commercial, when other, we have other similar cartoons with toy lines, like He-Man. They didn't kill off He-Man. He was there, and they kept the core characters, He-Man and Man-at-Arms and Teela and Skeletor but they would introduce a new hero or a new villain in each episode to kind of refresh these characters and say, okay, here is a new character, here is a new vehicle, here is a new playset that we're going to put into this episode, and you can buy it now at the store.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they did for the first two seasons. You had your core Autobots, your core Decepticons, and every episode or so they would introduce a new character or something, and then, okay, that would feature this one character. Granted, you would likely not see that character ever again, but the episode exists, the character is now in the kids' minds, and they'll go to the store with the parents, and they'll say, buy me that.
Or they would introduce an entirely new concept or type of Transformer, like the Dinobots, or like the Constructicons.
Or the Headmasters.
Yeah, and so then it would be like, oh, but now I also have to get Grimlock and all his pals because now they're teaming up with Optimus and the Autobots,
I can't just get one Constructicon, I have to get all 6 so I can form Devastator.
Yeah, exactly. I think that one of the problems Transformers had at this point in time was that with something like He-Man or G.I. Joe or whatever, those toy lines were built a lot on you would buy here's Duke from G.I. Joe. I've got my Duke figure or whatever. And here's He-Man and here's Skeletor and whatever. But then where they really squeezed the parents for the money was all of the play sets, all of the accessories, all of the and now you have to have Battle Cat. It's like you can't just buy He-Man. You have to buy all of the crap that goes along with He-Man,
You need Castle Grayskull.
Absolutely, But the thing is that with the Transformers, if I bought an Optimus Prime, now I've got Optimus Prime. I don't have to then go and now Optimus Prime and his trusty steed RoboCat, there's not that in Transformers. It's kind of an all-in-one toy, and the only way you can really expand that is by just constantly adding new characters. So I am kind of sympathetic in if you're going to have this as a giant toy commercial, how do you keep selling more toys and putting out more toys? Because Transformers had that one problem that most other, I had Barbies as a kid and stuff. You can buy a Barbie and then you can spend thousands on the dream house and the convertible and the whatever.
Yeah, but with Transformers, it's you don't need to buy the vehicle because he is the vehicle.
Yeah. They're their own vehicles, they're their own play sets, they're
I understand that. You want to phase out the old toys and bring in the new. And that scene where Megatron and the Decepticons just destroy the season 1 team, it's the moment where Megatron goes from Saturday morning annoyance to full-on villain. Such cold-blooded murder.
Yeah, and what's that was with Jazz? Bumblebee? That's up there on the moon base, and the moon base totally gets eaten, and the two of them just disappear forever.
Bumblebee, which was the kid insert character. It was Spike and it was Bumblebee. They were the kid insert characters for those first 2 seasons. And they're, oh my God, they're dead. I mean, we find out they're not dead, but
Yeah, but when you're watching the movie, you're like, well, they just got munched, you know? Like, it's just like Unicron shows up and swallows both moons. And like for most of the movie, we follow a traumatized little kid terrified that his dad is dead.
and a group of warriors who just lost their leader.
Yeah, and also a kid we had never seen before.
And another kid we've never seen before who's supposed to be our new hero.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, I'm not saying that this idea couldn't have worked better. But the problem is that when you watch this movie is mostly action sequence underscored by the most kickin' soundtrack of the 80s. Like that is the one thing we're going to give this movie is that this soundtrack to this day is a banger soundtrack.
Cannot listen to that. I mean, I can listen to just the songs off this soundtrack and I can hear the dialogue in the movie. Instruments of destruction, die Autobots!
Yeah, you know, but it is weirdly more MTV than the movie we talked about last week, which was spawned by somebody from MTV, you know?
Yeah, I saw one of the trailers. I was looking up like old trailers for the movie and they advertised this as a sci-fi rock and roll adventure.
Yeah, they even had a rock and roll band cover the Transformers theme song.
Lion, yeah. Doing and adding lyrics to it about, you know, caught within the grip of the evil Unicron.
Yeah, and, you know, till all are one and everything, you know.
Light our darkest. Like, the entire plot of the movie is told in that intro song.
Which fortunately you don't hear until the ending credits.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just hear like the normal Transformers theme, you know, chorus part of it over the opening credits. Because if they'd have released that before, you'd been like, well, that's the entire movie.
Missed movies that had like theme songs like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's a more movie. I understand that you want to have the big pop hit, the big top 40 hit that's going to go viral, but I miss when movies had songs that was about the movie.
There is a theory that what actually killed that vibe was Wild Wild West.
Fair.
That movie and that song tanked so bad that after that it was seen as like just cheesy and weird to do that for a movie.
Since we're on the soundtrack, let's talk about the song, the most well-known song in this movie, "The Touch."
Dare to be stupid, oh, okay, yeah.
We'll get to Dare to be stupid. We'll get to there. I'm talking about, you know, you've got touch, you've got the power. Stan Bush's most well-known song. I did not know who Stan Bush was before I heard this song. And he's got like 2 or 3 songs on this soundtrack.
Yeah. I mean, to me, he's still just the guy that sang The Touch.
And this song, The Touch, wasn't even for this movie. It was written for a movie with Sylvester Stallone called Cobra. Cannot see how that song would fit into that movie. But I think this is mostly because of how associated that song became with the Transformers franchise, that it's hard to see it as in any other movie. You know, like Mark Wahlberg singing this in Boogie Nights. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. The thing is like Stan Bush did in the 80s do other movies, you know? And usually action movies. So I can see why they got him for Transformers, but here's the funny thing is like after Transformers, it kind of seems like he sort of stuck with Transformers.
Yeah, he would write a song called Till All Are One, which is literally a song about Transformers.
Yeah, and I
And
mean, like, he performs at BotCon and stuff, and like, it's kind of like this movie gave him a couple of his biggest hits, because The Touch is by far the bigger, but he also wrote Dare, which is in this movie, which is another banger.
yeah, you can do it if you dare. We dare to be stupid.
Yeah, but it was kind of like, I won't say that this movie, halted his career, but it definitely changed the course of it.
I mean, you're right. I mean, he's kind of known as a, part of the Transformers fandom. He's embraced that. And, like I said, he performs at BotCon. He has he's written other songs about the Transformers franchise. He's written songs for other Transformers projects, like some of the video games. So it's like I think as the 80s goes into the 90s and goes into 2000, that 80s rock sound kind of becomes novelty. So like Stan Bush has tried to change his sound to match modern tone, that it kind of hasn't worked for him. He even re-recorded The Touch as a slow ballad in an attempt to get it into the Michael Bay Transformers movies. Kind of didn't work. So like it just doesn't. He's an 80s rock artist, and outside of the 80s, it just doesn't work. So take the work when you can get it. If you're associated with this brand and they want you to perform your songs at their convention, and if they want you to write a new 80s rock song for their video game or for their TV show, take the money when you can get it.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned it and I mentioned it, Weird Al Yankovic has a song in this movie, Dare to be Stupid. And like The Touch, this was not written for this movie. It was already on his album, also called Dare to be Stupid. The music video was already out. The song itself is a parody of Devo. It's a very Devo-centric music video. Al wears a Devo suit, the radiation suit, on stage performing the song. Actually saw Weird Al recently on tour. Yeah, he still got it. And if you have not seen Al on tour, you should remedy that. Touring now with Puddle's Pity Party, and it's awesome. But yeah, he didn't even know the song was in the movie till somebody told him. Hopefully he got paid for it, but that's all I can say. And it works so well because Dare to be Stupid really does have those TV quotes. It's
Yeah, squeeze the Charmin and all that
look
kind
for
of stuff.
Mr. Goodbar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really does fit as the introduction to the Junkions.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what it's used for in the movie, is like, well, here's we've crash landed on planet Junk, and here come the Junkions, and it's before, they understand kind of how Retgar and the other Junkions communicate, which is by talking TV.
And I do like, they get TV signals, presumably from Earth, and that's how they learn to speak. Something that kind of does stay within the Transformers fandom. It was definitely used for the Michael Bay movie. That's how they learned Earth languages, by watching Earth television.
Yeah. And I mean, there's good ways to do it and bad ways to do it. We talked about a good way to do it last week. I really disliked what Michael Bay did with the Bumblebee flipping back and forth between radio stations and stuff. I thought that was the bad way to do it. But while we're kind of on this thing of the Junkions and everything, I do like some of the stunt casting we get here. I don't want to say like all of it was bad. Eric Idle does a good job as Retgar, even though it's not a big part, And Robert Stack does a great job as Ultra Magnus.
Yeah, for our generation, he will always be known as the host of Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah,
The man had a career. The man had a film career before this. But yeah, he's the host of Unsolved Mysteries for us. Call our hotline and you too can solve a mystery. Ultra Magnus hosting the again. It's one of my favorite videos around the beginning of YouTube. Is John Bailey, the epic trailer guy? You know those epic trailers on YouTube?
yeah,
Yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy. He got his start doing Transformers parody commercials, doing Unsolved Mysteries, The Death of Optimus Prime. His Robert Stack impression is just as good as his Optimus Prime impression.
that's awesome.
If you
Um,
have not seen it, go look it up on YouTube.
yeah, the one, but in talking about the actors, Leonard Nimoy, of course, is great, and he's got some banger lines in this. I mean, This Is Bad Comedy is of course one of the
Not
greats of all time.
not his first tour into animation. He was the original Gandalf in the original animated Hobbit.
Yeah. Well, he knows a lot about Bilbo Baggins, the greatest hobbit of them all.
Yeah. So like he already has experience in doing animation. But yeah, Leonard Nimoy Spock playing this ruthless, cold-hearted villain, you know, I'll kill you like I killed Prime.
Yeah. But I hate to say it, but the one where it falls down is that I don't think Judd Nelson really pulled it out as Hot Rod.
Don't you forget about him though. Hey, hey,
Well,
hey.
I will never forget about him, but I would kind of rather forget about him and Hot Rod. I don't know.
Uh,
Just watching this back as an adult, I was like, Hot Rod is not a character I can get behind.
like you said, it's a character we've never seen before. He's dropped in this movie. He's played off as a kid character, reckless, jumps into everything. For 40 years, fans blamed Hot Rod for the death of Optimus Prime. If he had
He
just
should. I still blame Hot Rod for the death of Optimus Prime.
if he had just stood back and let Optimus Prime handle business while Stan Bush was playing, this would have been a much different movie.
Yeah, and it feels like he gets rewarded at the end of the movie for like maybe if there was like he who takes out the Prime gets the Matrix of Leadership. Oh, well, Megatron, you weren't the one who actually took out Prime. Hot Rod was the dork wad.
And it's kind of played up right at that in that death scene because Optimus is handing the Matrix over to Ultra Magnus. He drops it because he dies, and who catches it but Hot Rod, and the Matrix glows. For the rest of the movie, Hot Rod is saying, the Matrix will save us. How do you know this? I don't know. I just feel it. And then him coming into himself as a leader by using the universal greeting to get the Junkions on their side. I get what they were trying to do. They're trying to have this impulsive kid grow into a leader, but it was wrong for it to be Hot Rod. It should have been Bumblebee.
Yeah, or somebody else that the kids were already identified with. It could have been any number of Autobots.
Well, the reason I say Bumblebee is because if you already want a young character that's going to grow up into a leader, you already had one in Bumblebee. He was already the scout. He was already the kid insert character for the robots. Spike is the human kid in the first few seasons, but Bumblebee was the kid character for the Autobots directly, So why not have it be Bumblebee that grows into Bumblemus Prime? Yeah, a lot of people are going to buy that toy.
I don't know. I like Bumblebee.
But I don't know if, he would have worked as a Prime. But I understand. I'm coming from, like, if you want a kid character, a young, impulsive character, and you want him to be the new leader, Bumblebee was right there. And I think it would have worked. We're going to have to workshop that name because Bumblemus Prime doesn't work for me. And I just made it up.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, like, I don't know why they couldn't have done kind of what they did with Megatron, which was that you get the idea that Galvatron is just Megatron with upgrades. Like, yeah, he's got a new voice actor and whatever, because they wanted to be able to say, like, we got Spock in this movie. But as far as a toy goes, and as far as the plot goes, there is some continuity there. It's like, like today we would call it like a Pokemon evolution or something,
Yeah, yeah.
Like, he
In
started
the
out as Megatron, and then his evolved form is Galvatron, and then,
they call in the Transformers world, they call this reformat, and
yeah,
he's
but
not the only he's not the only character that has gone through this, and not just the other, not just the Insecticons and the Swoops that become the new Armada, but even the heroes. Even in the next season, Bumblebee gets reformatted and he becomes Goldbutt.
yeah, and the thing is that they kind of did, like, retcon it from this, but I'm saying, like, because when I was watching this again, I kept thinking, like, there's a really good idea behind all of this that I feel just got mucked up in the creation of it. And I was thinking, like, how can you have the good storytelling and the 90-minute commercial that the studio wanted, And I kept thinking of all these different ways, and that's one of the ways, because I'm like, even though he's got a different voice and all, he still has all the same grudges as Megatron. He still has the memories of Megatron. Like, I don't feel with Galvatron like I'm trying to learn a completely new character.
What is the first thing Galvatron does? Kill Starscream.
Yeah.
How many times has he wanted to, and he finally did it?
Which keep your grubby paws off my Starscream, dang it. At least Soundwave survived. But the thing about that is that, like, do that, but do that for all of them, have Optimus go dark for a little bit and then upgrade into Ultra Magnus or whatever,
Was
because
the original toys from Japan, Diaclone. The original Diaclone convoy, which we know as Optimus Prime, was Ultra Magnus. You take all of that armor off, it's just a white Optimus Prime toy. So I am with you in that you could have easily had Optimus Prime get reformatted, upgraded into Ultra Magnus. I'm okay with that.
yeah, because when you're watching the movie, it's just like, oh, there's a guy who looks almost exactly like Optimus Prime taking over for Optimus. Like, it's almost like the movie's like, you got Optimus Prime at home, like.
Yeah.
And that's no shade to Robert Stack or even Ultra Magnus as a character. It's just that it's not really, it's not really given the weight that it should. In my memory, the death of Optimus Prime was given a lot more weight than it actually was in the movie.
Because they move on very quickly from this.
It was like, no, Optimus, you can't die. I am dead. Okay, next battle,
We have to go back to Cybertron and use the Matrix to defeat the Decepticons. And oh hey, Unicron's coming. Oh hey, there's Galvatron. Who's Galvatron? Oh, he's Megatron. Oh, damn it, open. We do need to go about that. That was another point of this movie. You're a kid. It's 1986. You're just a little kid and you want to see the movie about your favorite toys. And they're swearing.
Yeah, I mean, only once, but still.
Twice. I mean, we get Ultramatic saying, damn it, open! And then we get Spike going, oh shit, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I missed the damn it, because it's like in the middle of like a scene where there's like a lot of audio noise,
Yeah.
But yeah, but Spike's oh shit moment was absolutely hilarious, because I had forgotten it was in that, and I may not have ever even known. Like, I think the last time I saw this, it was on TV or whatever. And
Yeah, they'll edit that out.
there is an edit that they have, removed that.
I'm going to be honest with you. I never saw this in the theater when I was a
Yeah,
kid.
neither did I.
I saw this in 1988 when they aired this on television as 5 episodes of the Transformers. They split this movie up into 5 episodes.
And the thing is that if you watch the movie now, you can see where they had already pre-planned to do that.
Yep.
Because there are moments where it fades to black and you could just, shove in an ad break. So when you're watching the movie, even if you're just watching it as a single movie, it is very obvious to tell, like, okay, this is the end of this episode, to be continued,
Be continued tomorrow on the Transformer. The movie, like you said, Kiki, this movie is a lot of action scene to action scene to action scene, which for some reason works in an animated movie, but did not work in the Michael Bay movies. I'm not a fan of the Michael Bay Transformers movies, but it also seems to follow that formula of here's an action scene, we're going to go to another action scene, we're going to go to another action scene. Oh, here's a hot girl, here's a dorky guy, action scene, finale.
Well, I will tell you that it works better in an animated, but man, I got bored watching parts of this. I had forgotten how much of this is just one long action scene and how little of it is actually like any sort of plot or character interaction. And I think that, not only everybody blames the death of Optimus Prime as the reason why this movie didn't work. Okay? And I'm not taking away from that because I do think that was a real big misstep on the part of Hasbro. But I think that the other problem was that they made the writer put in so many action scenes and there is no place, they want kids to go out and buy these toys. But Transformers, because they had the, 30-minute toy commercial and stuff, all of those things that we think of with that, like G.I. Joe and He-Man and My Little Pony and Transformers, and, all those series at the time, Care Bears even, kids weren't necessarily buying the toys because they were a cool looking toy. They were buying the toy because they liked the character, And that's the thing that they missed was that, like, you were buying a He-Man toy because you liked He-Man as a character. You were buying, like, which Transformer did you want to get? Like, well, yeah, sometimes you'd want to get, like, just the one that had the cool transformation or whatever. But a lot of times when you ask people, like, what Transformer did you really like or really want as a kid, they're gonna say, like, their favorite character, Like, I've always had a soft spot for villains in media. So I really wanted a lot of the Decepticons. I wanted a Starscream, I wanted a Soundwave, I wanted the Megatron, because they, to me, were the ones that had the funnier lines and the cooler personalities.
Like, the relationship between Megatron and Starscream is a big core of the franchise itself. It's, Starscream's entire, I want to be the leader of the Decepticons, I'm going to usurp Megatron at every opportunity. But then when he tries to, he fails,
Yeah, and I love it. I love, Starscream finally almost getting his moment of glory in this. And him being mad that the trumpeters keep playing the fanfare and stuff, and he's like, eventually just blasts all their trumpets, and he's like, "Shut up! Put the crown on my head!" Like, it's such a Starscream moment. And to me, I was like, I love those bits where it's the character bits, you know. I like the character and the morals of Optimus. I like the character of Bumblebee. You know, I didn't just go like, wow, I want a robot that transforms into a VW wagon. You know, like,
To be honest, because of Bumblebee, when I was a kid, I wanted my first car to be a VW Bug.
yeah, they looked cool until we got old enough to actually have cars, and then they released the new Beetle, and that thing was so ugly.
And then Bumblebee became a Camaro, so there went.
Yeah. But the thing about it is that we're introduced to all these new characters in here. You know, like if you're a little kid in the theater in 86 and you've been watching the TV series, and then it's like, oh, well, I got to see like, you know, a second or two of Spike and Bumblebee and Jazz and all up on the moon base. And then it goes down to Earth, and here's this kid we've never met. And if you were paying attention, you know, you would have heard Spike go like, take care of my son down there that's with you, you know? But like, that's our first introduction to that character. We have no idea who Hot Rod is. And these are our two viewpoint characters the second we get to Earth. Our two characters we have never seen before. And
When we first met Spike in the first season, he's a teenager. And he has a girlfriend, Carly. And while she's not in the movie, we would find out that Carly is Daniel's mother. But when we start the movie, Daniel is much, much younger than we saw Spike in the original series.
yeah. And
So we already, you know, this starts, you know, annoying kid character, maybe. But it's, you know, like, he's definitely, you know, he needs help. He doesn't know how to defend himself. And, you know, he does, you know, he doesn't really do anything until they get him his exosuit.
yeah. But also, like, we're introduced to these two characters who are going to be like our two viewpoint characters, according to the film. We've never met them before, and we get our introduction to them being like a minute and a half of them fishing. Like, why are they fishing? Why would an Autobot fish?
I don't know. Why do humans? I mean, humans fish because they want food, but Transformers don't eat food. They eat energon.
So, like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, is this supposed to be like a fatherly moment? Like a brotherly moment? Like, what is the relationship between these two characters supposed to be? You know? And then all of a sudden, Daniel has a hoverboard for like 0.4 of a second before it gets broken. And I'm like, well, that would have been a cool thing for him to have for longer in the movie, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, Megatron has a lightsaber for like 5 seconds.
Well, and so does Hot Rod later on. He's practicing with it on the ship on the way to Cybertron.
Use your feelings, Hot Rod.
Yeah, I know. It's like this really weird Luke Skywalker moment, and I'm like, why do they suddenly have lightsabers? I do not remember this being part of the franchise before, you know? And my problem with it, I think both when I watched it when I was younger and going back and watching it now, is that we get no introduction or character development for either of these characters.
It's just Daniel is Spike's son, and Hot Rod is new character, and then he's impulsive and he doesn't listen. And yeah, like I said, if this was a character we already knew, like Bumblebee, it would make sense. But because they felt the need to go 20 years into the future from where we were in the show, you know, this is 1985 season 2 of Transformers, and we're jumping to the year 2005.
The far distant future, 2005.
You know, so we're skipping, now we have new kid characters and we have new Autobot characters and all of that. It is funny how we get new Autobot characters, but the Decepticons is still the same one.
Yeah, I guess evil just isn't as creative.
The fact that Starscream is there 20 years later and Megatron only after being reformatted blasts him away.
Yeah. The let's talk about the makeup of the universe according to this movie. Cuz it makes it seem like Earth is the only planet with any sort of organic life, and everywhere else in the universe is robots.
Yeah, again, right at the beginning, we see that other planet of robots. We see the Sharkticons with the Quintesson, and I mean,
Yeah,
the
we got like
Quintesson.
4 different planets in this movie, and of the 4, like 3 of them are totally robot inhabited.
Yeah, uh, I maybe. I mean, it's implied that Primus created the Transformers. So, but also in the show, again, kind of skipping ahead into the next season, it's implied that the Quintessons created the Transformers. So, did the Quintessons create all robotic life in the universe?
Including Unicron. Yeah, it's the thing is like, yes, they would go back in the media after this and try to explain some of the inexplicable in this movie. So if you're just taking it from the perspective of it's 1986, I have this movie and I have 2 previous seasons of the cartoon show. There is a lot in this movie that does not make any sense, even if you have been watching the cartoon.
Like, we have never heard of the Autobot Matrix of Leadership before this movie.
Yeah.
We had one episode where we see Orion Pax getting seduced to the dark side by Megatron, going against him, and then becoming Optimus Prime. But we're also this movie implies that he was given the Matrix of Leadership upon doing so, which were not shown in the original cartoon. And I get why. They needed a MacGuffin for the movie. So they created the Autobot Matrix.
Yeah.
They needed a symbol to show the passing of leadership from Optimus to Rodimus. And you do it with the Matrix. We need something that's going to destroy this big old robot Unicron. It's the Matrix. Okay, I get it. But it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and also they don't explain it or why it's just like it's the Matrix, it will destroy him or whatever. It's like not like, oh, this is the most powerful form of energy or something we have, or this was once the heart of a great weapon tamed by the primes, or so, something. All you need is like one sentence to give it, like, why is this thing powerful and capable enough to take out a planet-eating planet robot,
And a plague on Earth later in the next season.
Yeah. Again, I am trying to stick to like what we would have thought like back in 86.
Exactly. I get it, but I had to mention the hate plague.
I know. But it's because both of us, I think, have really been trying to figure out like, why did this movie tank so bad? And there are so many theories. 1, it killed off Optimus Prime. 2, it came off in like one of the most impactful and best movie summers in movie history. I mean, 1986 was a banger year. Go look at all the stuff that came out in 1986, and you will be like, oh, wow, that may have been the greatest year in history for movies.
Like, Howard the Duck is still in theaters. Flight of the Navigator, 2 movies that we had talked about on this podcast, are still in theaters. We're in a couple of months from now, we're getting The Great Mouse Detective. No, The Great Mouse Detective had already come out at this point.
Yeah. So it's like Mouse Detective is still in second run theaters at that point, sucking up some money, and Also, Hasbro is going to be releasing the My Little Pony movie too. And I know that it's like, oh, well, boy movie versus girl movie. But you know what? When you're a parent and there's a movie that you can park your little kids in front of, you're going to go to that movie and park your kids in front of it,
Like, just let's talk just the 4 weeks surrounding Transformers the movie. Just on that alone. So let's go July, all right? July, you get, like you said, My Little Pony, Space Camp, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Back to School, Karate Kid 2, Labyrinth, you Big Trouble in Little China. Not necessarily a kids movie, but it was a movie
A
we
lot of
grew up
kids
with.
snuck into that movie though.
Yeah, Great
You
Mouth,
know,
like Aliens, the second Alien movie. Now, granted, again, not a movie that we should have been watching, but we saw it anyway.
yeah.
I mean,
It's a thing of, and the other thing that people forget now, because it hasn't happened in a while, is that, back in the day, when it would take almost a year for a movie to go from releasing in theaters to coming out on VHS, is that if you liked a movie, you went back to the theater and saw it. It wasn't the bank-breaking expense that it is now, where it's like, oh, me and my friend want to go see a movie, and after like snacks and everything, it's like $50 just for two people to see a movie,
mhm.
You're not shelling out $100 for a family of four to go see a movie at that point. When I was a kid, I used to go see movies constantly. I would see 3 or 4 movies in the theater per week. Because there were all kinds of like matinees and cheap shows and, coupons you could clip out of the newspaper and stuff.
My family, in an attempt to be cheap, took us to the drive-in because that way we could just see multiple movies for a cheap price. We're just being in the car.
Yeah.
I miss the drive-in. I miss the
Me
drive-in
too.
so much.
Yeah. But the thing is like, so if you went and saw a movie and you liked it, you knew that it was going to be a year before you could see that movie again. So you went back to the theater
And
to see that movie.
even if you didn't have a VHS player, that's another year before it airs on TV.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't see this movie until '88. I didn't see it in the theaters. My parents didn't own a VCR. I had to wait till it aired on television.
Yeah. So it's like if you had a VCR at home, which they were still kind of expensive at that point, and not everybody did, it would be a year before you could see it outside of the theater. And then if you didn't have a VCR at home, it would be 2 years before it would finally lapse into like, okay, we'll show this on TV. And by that point, it would be edited. There'd be stuff missing. They'd take things out for commercials or whatever. And so it was like, if you really cared about a movie, not only would you go see it in theater, but you would go see it multiple times in theater.
I mean, there are stories of people seeing Star Wars multiple times over. If we adjust for inflation of every movie that is released, Gone with the Wind would it still be a movie that people saw the most? Granted, this is pre-television, but people who have seen this movie were going back for about 5 years to see Gone with the Wind in the theaters. That will never happen today.
Yeah.
A movie cannot even be in the theaters a month before the studios are already ready to put it on streaming because they're only going to see it once. People are going to go to the theater, they'll see it once, and then, oh, I'll wait till it's on streaming.
And a lot of times now, like Amazon Prime will have like movies currently in the theater that you can pay like, $30 to rent it for like 2 days or something.
Disney Plus tried it, people didn't like it.
But boy, is that a big market on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And they're crossing over with all the studios. It's like, here's extra stuff. So there's even stuff you can get on digital at the same time as it's in theater. Um, and I think that one of the reasons that Transformers did not make as much at the box office as they figured was that no kid is going to want to sit through this twice in a theater.
The trauma of seeing Optimus Prime die over and over and over again, and this new kid, Hot Rod, becomes the new leader.
Yeah, and so I think that doesn't get accounted for quite as much as it should when talking about why this movie tanked. Like, if the movie came out today, we don't really take multiple viewings in a theater into account because it's not a thing many people do anymore.
Yeah, it's just the opening weekend and nothing else matters.
Yeah, but at the time, as long as a movie was selling tickets, they'd keep it in the theater, and it would go for months at a time, as long as people were still coming to see it. And a lot of those were repeat viewings. And if you go to the movie as a little kid and then you go back to your little kid friends and they go like, "Wow, you saw the Transformers movie. Was it awesome?" You're probably not going to say like, "Yeah, it was awesome. Why haven't you gone seen it yet? Make your parents take you." Because they kill off Optimus Prime. There's like a bunch of new characters that like you've never seen before. All the characters you want to go see are barely in the movie.
They're either barely in the movie or they're killed off in the first 20 minutes. Unless you really like Grimlock.
Yeah. Me, Grimlock, am in this movie quite a bit.
And me, Grimlock, have new friend Wheelie.
Yeah. But like, if you're a little kid, you're not going to be like making fun of the other little kids for not seeing the Transformers movie. It's not like, "Oh man, you haven't seen Star Wars, you got to go see Star Wars." Like, it's like, "You haven't seen the Transformers movie?" It was okay.
And if you didn't see the Transformers movie, you are going to be lost. Because they made season 3, season 4 take place immediately after the movie. So if you didn't see the movie, you have no idea what's going on. Where's Optimus? Where's Ironhide? Where's Ratchet? Oh, you didn't watch the movie. You didn't know. I'm so sorry. Where's Starscream? You don't want to know what happened to Starscream. What happened to Megatron? Well,
Speaking of being lost, I gotta say, the reviewer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which I think was just called the Atlanta Constitution back in the 80s, had one of the harshest reviews of this movie I have ever read. And it was so funny to read some of the things he said. Because it is really hilarious, because he said that, okay, he's an adult. He's going in there as an adult. He had not watched the TV show. But we've talked about it before, like, with the Bob's Burgers movie and stuff. Like, you never watched Bob's Burgers really on TV, but you didn't feel lost during that movie, you know? And that was kind of what people expected, that if a TV show went to a movie, it was going to explain enough that even if you hadn't seen the TV show, you would still understand what was going on in the movie. The reviewer, Scott Kane, talks about not having any idea what was taking place on the screen. Like, I have no idea what's going on in this movie. I have no idea who these two factions are, why they're fighting, I mean, granted, we didn't really know that when the TV show started either, because, you get everything in the opening theme song. Is like, the Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. There you go, kid. That's all you need to know.
to the point, and now I'm going to put a sidebar here. When this movie released in the UK, apparently they listened, because they replaced the intro, the opening title screen where we hear the theme song, and we see all of the celebrity names playing, that got replaced. That got replaced with a Star Wars-esque opening crawl explaining the story so far.
That would have been nice, but he talks in his review about like going and talking to other kids in the theater, like going and talking to little kids in the theater and being like, do you understand what's going on? And they're like, yeah, shut up, let me eat my popcorn, you know? And he was like, okay. But the thing is that like he does point out that it is almost nonstop action. There is no real plot or character development. And he does say in there that, like, okay, just nonstop action and, you know, whatever might work for some tiny kids, but it's not going, you know, above a certain age, it's not really going to hold your interest. And he also said that he found it really disturbing that there is only one human child on screen, and he spends most of his time on screen being terrified or crying. Because if you think about it, Daniel does spend most of the movie either being like, oh no, where's Optimus? Oh no, where's my dad? Oh my goodness, is my dad gonna be okay? Like, oh no, Optimus has died. Oh no, I think my dad has died for a short second, you know, like,
Ultra Magnus is dead. Where's Hot Rod?
yeah, and it's like that is like one of the most traumatized kids in cartoon movie history, you know? And I agree with him that, you know, that's probably a lot of reason. You know, it's like what kind of, I hate to say it, but if you watch the Transformers cartoon as a little kid, you kind of wanted to be Spike, you know? You're like, "Hey, I wouldn't mind being the human that befriends the Autobots and gets to like go around on their crazy adventures." But if you watch this movie and you're like, "So, do you want to be that little kid?" You'd have to be like a real weirdo to be like, "Yeah, that looks like a fun time," you know?
Like I said, Spike was a teenager. Daniel's a kid. Single digit.
Yeah.
And I think that
It's kind of weird of like how old he's supposed to be. Like I'm not sure we ever get an exact age on him, but you know, he can't be more than 10.
despite this being 2005, they're wearing, all the humans wear these 70s jumpsuits.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a point there. Like I said, Daniel is a little kid. He is the same age as the children watching this movie. At least with Spike, he's an older kid, a teenager. So he can kind of take care of himself I mean, he's not going to be able to keep up with a giant robot with a blaster gun, but at least he's smart enough to figure out certain situations. With Daniel, he's just a little kid. He's scared. You know, his father is missing and presumed dead. All of his friends are either dead or dying. This little kid's going to need some serious therapy.
Yeah.
And he really doesn't do anything. Like I said, he doesn't really do anything until he gets the exosuit, which he now at least is safe because he's wearing armor, so he's not going to get killed by these blaster shots, and he can transform. They really push this exosuit like it means something. Again, we've never seen these suits before this movie. A lot can happen in 20 years between season 2 and the movie. But I feel that they should have kind of explained what these exosuits are. Like, we see Spike wearing one at the beginning of the movie on the moon base with Bumblebee. And, okay, maybe it's just a regular spacesuit because there's no atmosphere on Cybertron because they're robots. They don't need to breathe. The only explanation we ever get is that, oh, it can transform.
Yeah. And it is kind of funny because you can forgive all the Transformers stuff when it's a robot, you know? But then like all of a sudden there's Daniel in his exosuit and they're like, Daniel, transform, and he's like, okay. And then all of a sudden like it transforms around and turns into a car, and I'm like, there is not enough room for it to have done that around his limbs. Like, it would have broken all of his bones in that transformation.
They try to hide it by having him like pull his arms in and kind of drive it with like little joystick next to him, but it's like it's such a like a one frame thing that it is blink and you'll miss it.
Yeah.
I do want to come back to the quintessons. I know that even as a kid, okay, this is some sort of commentary on the justice system. Guilty or innocent. Innocent. Feed him to the Sharkticons.
Yeah.
Even as an adult, I don't get I don't get the subtle. I don't get what they were trying to do. But then maybe I'm just too optimistic about the justice system.
It was just like some of the places we go in this movie and some of the characters we meet, I kind of like, why was this even in here? And honestly, the I think they could have both ended up on the Junkion planet, just in two different spots, and we could have had, because really the only thing that we get from these, like, let's go to these side planets sequence with the Quintessons and the Junkions is that a couple of the bots get repaired, and
yeah, funny that they can repair Ultra Magnus, but Optimus Prime is dead.
Well, he's also still back on Earth. And then he but the thing is that the other thing that the side quest to the Quintessons planet does is that it teaches us about the universal greeting. And it's like, why didn't they just have them both crash land on the same planet and all, but in two different places? And then they could have met like a more hostile faction. Hot Rod and Cup could have had the more hostile faction, and then when they meet up with the group and they meet the Junkions, they're like, oh great, this faction's going to be hostile, and then Hot Rod can do no wait, let's do the universal greeting, and that's how they get their extra forces to go back and try to retake Cybertron, because that's really the only thing that little side quest does, is prove that, like, now Hot Rod knows the universal greeting, I guess, and that's supposed to prove his leadership. I don't know.
This is, again, I think it's a way to extend the movie, because this is to be 90 minutes. And if you could probably do this as a 2-part episode, but they needed this to be a 90-minute movie.
Well, the thing they needed to do, though, was to add in, like, character development or plot, is my point. Like, there's definitely a lot of this movie where it's like, oh, they put this in as padding, but to me that's like half of the action scenes.
I mean, when it comes to Transformers, you have to understand that 90% of what happens in Transformers is TST, to sell toys. We need to have this whole encounter with the Sharkticons because we have a Sharkticon toy that's coming out. We have this whole encounter with the Junkions because we got a Wreck-Gar toy that we're coming out. We have this entire action sequence because we need to show the kids how cool these toys look so they can tell their parents to buy them. And that's why these scenes are here. I get that. And it would work if this was a television commercial. If this was a TV show, like I said, if this was a 2-part episode of the TV show, that can work. But you're trying to do a 90-minute movie that is trying to be a movie and trying to be a toy commercial at the same time. So, like, we get, after all of that, after, all those stuff, we get to the final battle with Unicron. And, light our darkest hour, arise, Rodimus Prime, you've got the touch, you've got the power, and Unicron is destroyed, leaving him as only a head in space, and that will come back in the next season. But as for this movie, this movie still had the soft spot for me. I still have a soft spot for this movie because I grew up with the Transformers cartoons. I had the toys, so there is a little bit of a I can forgive this because this was a movie really just to be a toy commercial for kids because the show was a toy commercial for kids. I understand what Hasbro was doing because they did not understand that for kids, these were not toys. These were characters. These were their heroes. And they were senselessly killed off to the point where parents are calling Hasbro. They're writing in letters. You know, how dare you? My children are having nightmares because of this. And that changes so much of Hasbro going forward. And not only how they handle Transformers, but how they handle their other franchises. Because of the failure of Transformers the movie, G.I. Joe the movie, which they already had in production, doesn't go to theaters. It goes direct to video. It airs on TV as episodes. G.I. Joe the movie also changes its ending. Duke was supposed to die in G.I. Joe the movie, but they changed the ending so that Duke is merely wounded and recovering in a hospital because they did not want another blast back for one of their shows. They dedicate several episodes of the next season to bringing Optimus Prime back to life as a make good. So, and Optimus Prime is always the leader of the Autobus going forward. They just rotate all of the other characters, but it's always Optimus Prime and it's always Megatron.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this year, like I said, they're calling this year the apology tour because they knew they screwed up. Granted, the people who worked at Hasbro in 1986 are probably not even with the company anymore. They're probably retired or dead.
Yeah. And
But the point is,
I kind of want to go like, you know, the writers and stuff kept like the creatives kept telling you this wouldn't work, you know?
yeah.
It
But
wasn't
they
like
didn't.
they weren't warned.
But they just didn't see it. You know, kids are stupid. Kids will believe. You know, kids will watch whatever we show them. Kids don't care about these toys because that's how they are. They're toys. You break your toy, you get another toy. They didn't
Yeah.
understand that for the kids, these were their heroes.
A pre-Toy Story world.
Yeah. Could you imagine if Toy Story came out in '86?
Yeah.
Toy Story 2. We got to kill everybody up. Let's kill off Buzz. Let's kill off Woody.
Yeah.
We have these new characters we need to bring in.
Yeah.
But as for Transformers movie, does it have the magic? I still have a soft spot. So yeah, I'm going to say it does have the magic. It has its issues. It has its problems. As a movie, it okay. As a movie, the movie is boring. The movie is plotting. The movie is all action sequence, very little plot, with a bunch of characters that if you grew up with the original cartoon, you have no idea who they are. But the animation is beautiful. The songs are still rocking. And I'm willing to give it a pass. So I will say it has the magic.
You know, here's the thing is I'm gonna agree with you. Like if you come at this movie as an adult, you're like all of that stuff. But I can't help but get kind of psyched when I hear the touch, you know, like it's you know, your head starts bopping when Dare to Be Stupid comes on, you know, like it just
Yeah.
something about, and the animation is absolutely just gorgeous. You know, it's a very particular style of animation, of course, but like it's such a upgrade from what the TV show was doing.
Yeah.
And so like there are good parts of this movie that are definitely magical. It's just none of those parts are plot or character.
Yeah. It it is a movie version of playing with your toys.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. That's what we did. You know, we played with our toys. This is the movie version of playing with your toys. So let's move on to next week. Let's stay in the year 1986, since it is such an important part of our childhood. Kiki, you remind me of the babe.
What, babe?
Babe with the power.
What power?
Power of voodoo.
Who do?
You do.
Do what?
Remind me of the babe. Next week, we are going to be going back into the world of Jim Henson, but not the Muppets, a movie that is near and dear to both of our hearts, Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Kiki, we get to talk about one of your favorite subjects, David Bowie.
Lot of it next week.
So come back next week as we talk Labyrinth, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.